everybody, to the Heady live stream. It is Monday, April 30th. I am your host, Eli Harrington, and we are here. Thank you to Heady, Vermont. We are here at Jam Creative Studios. Big shout out and thank you to our hosts. As always, Mr. Sean Simonetti behind the ones and twos, Sean Simonetti Media, making this all look so great. You guys see him showing off with a wide camera angle there, looking awesome. And of course, we've got a guest tonight, our friend Chris Miller. He is here from Northern Spirulina. So we're going to talk to him tonight about aquaculture, about starting a plant-based business in Vermont, about value-added agriculture, and we're going to tell you guys what the heck Spirulina is, because a lot of you are probably familiar, some of you probably are not. But it fits in totally with what we do with Heady, Vermont, and the Heady Vermonters whom we encounter. Like our friend Chris. So Chris, thanks for being on tonight.
Yeah, thanks.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Awesome. Well, we will start with a little bit of news tonight. We've got some big updates, and we've got some big things in the works. NECAN is looming large. We're less than 2 weeks away. This is going to be the first Vermont Cannabis Convention that we have done with NECAN. So it's going to be up here in Burlington the 12th and 13th. We're going to show you guys a little bit of a video later on that some of you may have seen in the past. But that is what's going on. We are getting ready for this. All of New England is going to converge up here in Burlington on the 12th and 13th of May. It's going to be at the Hilton by Doubletree. For those of you who know Burlington, formerly known as the Sheridan. For the rest of you, you can find directions on there, and you're going to see a huge banner in the next week out there for the Cannabis Convention. So that is huge news, but there's a lot happening in Vermont. I want to touch on it quickly before we get into our interview with Chris. Last week, big news about tax and regulate. A lot of you guys probably saw this on the coverage, I think, on Thursday. We were down there at the State House. And I had a chance to do a little bit of a dispatch. If you guys don't follow us on Twitter, I hope that you do. I would encourage you to do so, because usually when we're at the State House, that's how we report in kind of real time. Try to put it out on Facebook, and we always do follow it. But last week there was big news in Montpelier with tax and regulate coming back as a legislative issue. Now, how serious this was versus how much of a political question. We talked about that in the news. I had the opportunity to be interviewed by Peter Hirschfeld from Vermont Public Radio. So you can go read what we said about this. And I did a follow-up column about sort of the politics behind the scenes. But tax and regulate, the takeaway is that it's not going anywhere. In 2019, there are going to be a lot of serious proposals on the table. So it's a good chance for people to think about it, contact your representatives, and we are going to be doing a bigger push for that. But encourage you to go back, check that column out, because we talked a lot about the politics, the specific issues that are at play. Something that you guys don't know yet. Some of you know, because I've heard from you. There's big news coming for the Vermont Hemp Program. The Vermont Hemp Program, I'll give you guys a little bit of a teaser here, because I do have a full sort of analysis that we're going to publish in the next day or two. But there is a bill that's called S-276 that is going to make some significant changes to the Vermont Hemp Program. If you're somebody who's making CBD products, if you're somebody that's growing hemp, if you're somebody that wants to get involved, there's going to be significant news for you. Thankfully, I think it's mostly good news, and a lot of the people I've talked to agree. But stay tuned for that. I'm not going to tease it too much. If you want to go look that bill up and do a little bit of reading yourself, I would encourage you to do so. But we wanted to tease that because those are the big things happening in Vermont, and right now we really want to focus in on cultivating the Vermont scene. It's planting season, people got their starts going, they got their seeds popping, it's time to get outside if it ever stops raining. So we're kind of cultivating the Vermont scene. We'll talk a lot more about what's happening the rest of New England in the next coming months. But big things are happening in Vermont, big hemp news coming. Tax and regulate, pretty much dead for 2018, but a lot of discussion will happen, and NECAN, the Vermont Cannabis and Hemp Convention. So if you have questions about anything that we've discussed thus far, if you have questions about what's going on with either of those bills and tax and regulate, drop in the comments. We'll do our best to get to them. Shout out to Nancy. Thank you. I think that's Nancy, best hot dog cart in Manchester. Nancy, thanks for tuning in. But like I said, light on the news tonight, because we have got a special guest, and we are going to introduce Chris. We're going to talk about Northern Spirulina. We're going to talk about why we're talking about Spirulina and give people a little bit more context. And in the meantime, as far as news, Hemp Fest, we've done a lot of work on. I want to give a big shout out to Monica Heady Vermont, Jam Creative did a ton of work putting together a lot of information. We're going to drop Hemp Fest details. That's in September in the near future. And in the meantime, thanks to our friend, the talented Sean Simonetti, always ready behind the decks here, we've got a Hemp Fest teaser, which we're going to give you guys an exclusive look at right now. So we're going to go ahead and play the teaser. This is for Hemp Fest 2018, September 7th through 9th in Burke Mountain. Shout out to the NEK. Thank you to Burke Mountain having us back once again. Here's a little idea of what you missed last year and a sense of what we have to come.
HempFest 2017 was a groundbreaking event. We brought hemp farmers, CBD producers, and people with an interest in the plant together to learn, share, and grow the community. You could feel the tangible excitement from the crowd. You could see the diversity in the people. We had everything from millennials to octogenarian farmers to everything in between, there to learn, share, and connect over what is arguably the most versatile plant in the world.
Yeah, all right, man, that makes me so happy, Chris. Big thank you to Sean for doing a great job putting this video together, and to everybody who was there at the original Vermont Hemp Fest. Thank you for putting that together. September 7th through 9th. I do want to give a shout out also to Fiddlehead Brewing tonight. Fiddlehead threw down on a nice little shindig that we had here our last Friday night and blessed us with some of this awesome glassware. And so generally big fans of Fiddlehead. Thank you very much. Appreciate what you do. Let's talk to you, Chris.
Yes.
I like talking to myself and talking to the people, and we do want people to drop in questions as well throughout the course of the interview tonight. But let's get started.
Yeah.
Let's start with just your background. Who's this guy sitting here on the couch with us tonight in the Heady studios? Who is Chris, and how did we start getting into the whole idea of spirulina and to where we are today?
Yeah. So, I started growing spirulina about 9 years ago in India. And I was in a semester abroad for UVM, actually. And I was over there, and we actually initially went for a reforestation program. So I was there. It was actually I was in, some of you guys might be familiar with Oroville.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So it's like, it's a commune. It's like a collection of communes, really. But I went there to do a reforestation program with UVM, and it was kind of like, a collected group. And one of the things that they were doing was there was this organization called Antennae, and they were building spirulina pools in villages. And what they were doing was kind of supplementing diet for a big epidemic, is vitamin A deficiency. Mm-hmm. So they were building these pools in different areas, and that was helping supplement vitamin A deficiency. But then we're also providing a means of income for people to then sell it back to this organization is based out of Switzerland. Okay. Selling it back to Switzerland, and then creating a living. So I just got really obsessed with the fact that it was, just this food, this crazy superfood that is super efficient both in terms of nutrition and in terms of.
Let's back it out too. I did a bad job of setting you up. I mean, Spirulina, I kind of assume we have such an educated, such a good-looking audience too. I mean, it's crazy. All you guys, I can see you all here. It's wild. But a lot of people probably know. Some may not. Spirulina, you mentioned the word superfood.
Yeah.
Right, and Spirulina itself, we have some kind of samples of products here, and we're going to go and sit down and actually have some fun and actually do a little show and tell. We're going to debut the Heady Vermont kitchen space here as well. But what is spirulina to start with? And it sounds like you're doing a great job painting the picture of how this cool scene, and you were excited. International development and spirulina, how it kind of plays into international development, I think, and also like health and wellness and its history as kind of a superfood.
Yeah, so spirulina itself it's a cyanobacteria. So it's technically, it's a blue-green algae, but that's the name of the family. So it's actually considered a cyanobacteria. Blue-green cyna, is blue. And it's 3.5 billion years old. So actually its history goes way back to like the beginning of the Earth. And it put off so much, Spirulina and its cousins put off so much oxygen that it actually helped create the atmosphere that allowed for plants and animals to live. So it's much older than plants and animals and anything really that's related to us. But so spirulina is 65% protein, which is more than any other food. So it is also considered a complete protein. It contains all of the essential amino acids. So it has more iron than spinach. It has more vitamin A than carrots. It's just extraordinarily good for you. It has a whole list of vitamins and minerals, and it really truly is. It kind of came about in the 1970s when they started really realizing, it's been cultivated for a long time. So people in Mexico, peoples in Africa, Lake Chad region, Lake Texcoco region outside of Mexico City have been growing spirulina for thousands of years. And then, and after the 70s, they started studying it more. And then after NASA kind of put out, and the European Space Agency put out this sort of press release talking about spirulina being a, food of the future, as well as, something that's been cultivated by, people in the past, and, and designated it as a food that would be, that could be used for long-term space travel, just because of the sort of really super minimal inputs.
So that's kind of how this. Okay, so like
and that's what I got. That's how I got really like interested in it. Is like, wow, this food literally you can. There's some crazy people online that do blogs of literally living on spirulina because there's so much minor vitamins and minerals in this. If you were to just kind of get some calories.
Well, and it's kind of a cool, even in the 1960s and 70s, thinking about like globalization and modernity, and even this idea that here's a primordial algae, right? That's literally been here since the beginning of the Earth. And because we needed to do research and think about, and investing in space travel, we were able to kind of go and look at places in Mexico, Africa, South Asia, you mentioned where this is kind of occurring commonplace, and then apply a little bit more technical and scientific expertise to it. And I think that's kind of interesting. That's one of the parallels that I really like, and why I wanted to talk about, this, because we talk about hemp and the cannabis plant that's been around with humans forever, and people sort of coming full circle and thinking about different ways to use it. Spirulina botanically, very, very different, in a patently, completely separate thing, although we'll talk about some of the similarities a little bit later. But kind of the idea that international development and technology were what brought this to the forefront. And I remember growing up, like seeing this in the old school co-ops. Now we have like City Market, we've got right over here. And it's sort of, hip and cool. And what's the new superfood?
And really like health. It dovetails with health. The 1970s was like kind of the, more original, after the kind of, 1940s and 50s where food became really, kind of super sterile, and, Kellogg and, all of these sort of like very big mass-produced brands. In the 70s, kind of like the back to the landers, and people became more, started becoming more interested, or sort of a resurgence of, connection with their food, where it comes from, and how they can use food, as medicine, as something that can, as something for health.
Well, and that's one of the really cool things that I've enjoyed learning about, about spirulina through this process and sharing space with you, is just the practicality of it, right? And that's kind of a big part of this, that you talk about it being a food of the future and gaining in popularity because it is so darn efficient. And like the process of actually growing it is in aquaculture, right? And I think that we have people who are cannabis enthusiasts know about hydroponics, I guess, to a certain degree. Most people probably haven't experienced or seen aquaculture, right? So maybe you could kind of give a little context, and I know we've got some pictures that we'll put up on the screen here too, to kind of give people a sense. But how does this actually grow? What does it look like when it's growing? And I know we'll talk a little bit more about what this is in Vermont and some of the challenges, but generally speaking, what's aquaculture to begin with, and How's this happen?
Yeah, so I started when I was in India, and I took that sort of I got really obsessed with how the food made you feel and everything. And then when I came back to the United States, I got a culture from a laboratory out of Texas, and then I took that and I grew it in tanks here in Vermont, actually, in some of John and Monica, Heady Vermonters, started growing it in some of their old office spaces, and then it really. You can grow it in tanks, so people who really want to just, grow some for themselves, it's really sort of like, a cool hobby, and I just was obsessed.
Almost similar to kind of kombucha.
Yeah, for sure.
Kind of what you're
exactly.
kind of describing, right?
Exactly.
Like somebody gets
Absolutely.
a SCOBY in a tank, and they
Absolutely.
start messing
around.
around.
So you get a culture and you grow it up.
Okay.
And then, so what I did was I grew it up in these tanks, and people really loved the taste. People really loved how it made you feel. They loved it, as compared to the dried stuff, which was, kind of lifeless. It wasn't a raw, living thing. The drying process degrades a lot of the nutrients. And then, with support of my family, Jana and Tulsi, my little 5-year-old daughter, and my partner, I have another little boy.
Yeah, thank you for squeezing this in. Chris has got another child.
I have another child coming in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about that. And then
another great reason for people to purchase Northern Spirulina as well, right?
Support my
yes.
And yeah, so I started growing it, and then with support from my family, my parents, also some of my best friends, Greg and Aaron, we developed this company, Northern Spirulina, and the idea was to really sort of bring the living spirulina instead of this dried spirulina that they use. I could talk about this forever, but that you have to ship thousands of miles to Vermont. So what we do is we take this and we grow the culture up, and you kind of you grow it up and you feed it. There's a lot of organic spirulina that you can find in India and China. It has they use. By the way, don't buy. Don't buy organic spirulina. None of it is grown in the United States. It's all grown in China and India, and they use, to get, the USDA certification for organic is terrestrial. Right. So they use plant and animal-based fertilizers, which is good for plants, but for water-based, for aquaculture is not so good. You're putting, urine. These type of
the inputs really the environmental inputs are probably more intense in aquaculture, right?
It's a tiny multicellular organism. So any of these inputs are really going to affect the taste. That's another reason why we love growing in Vermont is really fresh water. We're able to control it underneath these greenhouses. And so what we do is we sort of bring it from larger pool to larger pool. You keep splitting it. As if you were to keep growing a kombucha SCOBY. If you were to just let that mother grow and keep adding it to larger and larger tanks.
So you can really scale this up. You know, right? And you guys, it's said
it's
like you said, literally, you come back and you've got a jar,
and
now you've got 2 jars, and now you've got 4 jars, and now you've got 8 jars, and now you've got your 2 friends, who are kind of getting into this mix as well. And I guess sort of, you kind of touched on it, that it's sort of the health and wellness thing, and you sort of mentioned, that's why another reason why I thought this would be so interesting, because you talk about people understanding they understand spirulina is good for them.
Yep.
Right? And I see a parallel with CBD, and they understand that it's good for them, right? Or that it has some benefits.
Yeah, right.
Right? Are they yet at the point of asking, where does it come from? Or what does organic really mean? And does that term hold weight? And that's why in general, it's interesting with something like this, which is an algae, is a cyanobacteria. What's the difference, I guess, between, we'll talk more in the kind of kitchen about raw versus frozen, but maybe you can kind of explain spirulina, how it gets from a pool, like we see on the screen, into something that's sort of ingestible.
Yeah.
And maybe start with giving people a little idea of how this is ingested, and then we'll show some commercials, and then we'll actually come back and show them how it's ingested.
Yeah, right.
And I will ingest it directly. I'm gonna do this for you guys tonight.
Yeah.
You're gonna see me get instantly healthier. It's gonna be like Popeye. You're gonna see my
He's gonna glow.
Explode out of this shirt. But start with that. How does it get from tank to recycle sustainable bottle?
All right, so I'm gonna go. So you have a tank, and as you add inputs, and as you get in Vermont, you want the nice sunny days. As you get a lot of sunlight, and as the culture starts growing, you can then either harvest it or split it. So as you keep growing, if you were to keep growing to large amounts, you keep splitting. So you go from 10 to 20 to 40. So you keep growing it, and then once you're ready to harvest, you can take the culture, which looks like a dark. Honestly, it really looks kind of like our shots here. It's a very dark green. We tried to get a tank here for you guys, but next
well, and they can see. We have the picture of the algae, and you can see. I mean, there's no light passing through.
You see pictures of the pools, right?
Yeah. So, and of the product in the jar too.
Right. So once the pools are nice and dense, you take the pools and you filter them. You use a diaphragm pump because you don't want to damage the spirulina, which you can do using propeller pumps and a lot of these other kind of pumps. So you want to use specific diaphragm pumps, so there's nothing shredding the actual organism. And you pump it through a fine mesh net back onto itself. And what's left is the curly spirulinas or spirulinas. I happen to say spirulina because I was taught by French people. A lot of people actually say spirulina because it's spiral.
Okay.
So if people are wondering why I'm saying it, anyways. So you're pumping it back onto itself, and the spirulina is kept in the net, and then the medium, which looks like water, goes back into the pool. And then what you do is you add a little bit of inputs. What we use is some natural nitrogen. We use sea salt, baking soda, a few natural minerals to emulate the way that it would grow in a lake, which is just like, or in, the
and that's
the
kind of how this started,
brackish,
right? Is that
exactly.
people, and in India probably that's what it was, right? It's pools and people kind of raking it off and then rinsing it out.
Yeah, I mean, originally it was just lakes. People were actually, because the pH grows in these mediums, you might think like, what about mosquito larvae or salmonella or coli, things that are in the air.
Usually
yeast,
standing
mold,
water is not
yeast
something.
And mold, exactly.
Right.
So it's not standing water. We use our, we create a medium that is very high pH, between 10 and 11, excuse me. And in that pH, hardly anything, E. coli does not exist, salmonella does not exist, staphylococcus does not exist. Mosquito larvae does not exist. So we grow it in a very high medium, which makes spirulina very safe to grow. And then once we, filter it back onto itself, you're left with which looks like, a green pudding.
We have
some pictures. So then we squeeze it a little more, so it becomes a little more firm. You're squeezing some of the water out, but you don't want to squeeze too much out because then you suffocate the spirulina; it will die faster. There's a picture of our original pool in Johnson, Vermont, and there's our wonderful. So we started off on an off-grid farm, which we're now moving to Williston. But then we you sort of press the spirulina out, and the medium goes out, you're left with the the living organism, which we then freeze to cubes, or we sell raw, which is becoming is quite popular. People like, because really compared to dried spirulina is associated with poor taste.
Right.
And we'll drink some later, but you can add my spirulina to all sorts of things as long as you don't cook it. But it really hardly has any taste at all. So by keeping it a living organism, not only are you feeling it and are you feeling great and ingesting this healthy food. I almost said medicine.
Right.
They're
food is medicine.
Exactly. That in a gist is how we do it. So once we filter it back onto itself, and you squeeze it out, and you're left with that sort of
like
pudding.
You said, and doing it raw too instead of drying it out.
Yeah.
I think most people can kind of understand, just like even especially now with probiotics. We talked about kombucha earlier, and I think people are so much more aware, which is why another reason why this is such a great business and why this is so cool and ties in with everything we're talking about, and just kind of more general awareness with health and wellness, kind of products. And so let's do this. Let's go back. We want to show you guys. I want to show you the HempFest video again, but we're also going to show the NECAN video because we've got NECAN coming up May 12th and 13th here in Burlington. There are tickets available, $30 for the weekend. We've got discounts for patients, discounts for veterans, discounts for students. You have no excuse not to be there. We're looking for volunteers. If you can't afford the $30 for the 2 days, we will get you there. We'll get our 30 bucks worth out of you in labor. So no excuses. I want to give you guys a little sense of what we have coming up. So let's show you a video. We'll show you a video for NECAN, and then we'll show you a video for HempFest back to back. And then we're going to move over part 2 into the Jam Creative Kitchens over here and do a little bit of show and tell and sampling.
Heady, Vermont. Heady, Vermont.
HempFest 2017 was a groundbreaking event. We brought hemp farmers, CBD producers, and people with an interest in the plant together to learn, share, and grow the community. Feel the tangible excitement from the crowd. You could see the diversity in the people. We had everything from millennials to octogenarian farmers to everything in between, there to learn, share, and connect over what is arguably the most versatile plant in the world.
And like what we do, yeah.
All right, guys, we are back. Yeah, all right, welcome to the Heady, Vermont kitchen. That's right. We've got a kitchen set, we've got a second set. If you're watching right now, thank you guys for being a part of this, because we're gonna keep evolving this, and we're really excited that we get to have a little bit more dynamic set tonight, because we thought this would be a great way to showcase this. So, Chris, we talked a little bit about Spirulina. Now we're gonna actually show people, right? I'm a visual person. I need to see things myself. And I know I'm going to grab at least one of these as well, because I do want to show people. Again, you guys kind of saw the pictures and saw how sort of dark this really is. Let's talk about what we have here in our beautiful Fiddlehead brewing glasses right here. So what do we have here? Yeah. And what are we going to try?
Yeah, so what we have here is me and a few friends who also grow the Spirulina with us have we've taken some drops from Shelburne Orchards. Shout out to Shelburne Orchards drop program, and we pressed it into our own cider. This is probably about halfway through fermentation, so it's a pretty low alcohol percentage. But we press it ourselves and we do natural fermentation, no sugar. And what we've done is we've added our Spirulina Cubes, which I meant to have out for you guys. But we sell them, in cubes here, but we also sell the jars of raw, which you've seen, I think, in the photos here. And I've added a cube to these drinks, and it's a really great way. Really, you can add them to almost anything. You can add it to pesto, salad dressings, one of my favorites. You're making a mustard vinaigrette, you just add a cube or you add a dollop of Spirulina into it, and you're getting protein and iron and vitamin A. So you're really like beefing up the drink. In many ways, you're seeing a lot of CBD products as well, in things like this.
That's exactly. It's interesting in that way. And also, I think one thing that you mentioned earlier, and that we have right here, on the brochure, that it says, fresh and frozen. Yeah. Right. So that's a big difference, is that you're not doing the dry stuff.
Yes.
If you've gone to like the old school co-ops like me growing up, and you've seen like the big things that you just scoop out in the powder, not that.
Not that.
But like you're saying, one thing, especially adding it to drinks, that's a big thing.
Yeah.
And I like that we're using your home fermented cider as an example.
Half fermented, but yeah.
Yeah, right. Well, we used our magical production machine to speed up the time. Like when they put the stuff in the oven and it just comes out ready. We did that here. So, but the cubes are great too, because if you're adding something to a drink,
Yeah.
Right? Like what's practical to add a scoop of some random thing, or
really just adding like a cube to to your pesto. But
like you said, it's tasteless.
Really.
That's the point.
Yeah.
That's the point. So that it's not like adding. If you've had like a protein, if you had ever, I was a jock in college, like hand up.
Yeah.
The protein powders and all that kind of stuff, or other supplements, and the other crap that you have to add to make it actually taste good.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that with this because it's actually not changing the taste.
Yeah, 99.9% of spirulina is dried. Really, almost all of it is dried.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because it really is. It's grown in China, in India, in Hawaii, California. Actually, the largest farms are in California, in Southern California, and they grow so much that they have to dry it. And like because it's really seen, they're almost extracting it like oil or some sort of they're really not taking care of it. Right. And they're using high heat spray drying methods. They're using solvents.
It's funny because this is like to draw a parallel. This is like kind of the whole plant extract CBD. This is like the CBD whole plant oil versus distillate kind of schism. And the bottom line I think that people can understand is that the more you dry out a plant product, the less green it gets.
Yes.
The less nutrition it's in.
Yes.
There,
yeah.
Right. And as people can see, this is very green. Yes. So I want to try some. Let's cheers to both the homemade cider.
Yes.
It tastes just like the cider.
Yes.
It tastes just like that's.
Yeah, we do samples at the farmer's market literally with just lemon water. Just to show people, because people are so afraid, it's so dark green.
Well, yeah, you see it, and like there's plant material in it. Like you can tell, which is honestly, psychologically, that's how you know you're drinking something healthy.
Yes.
Right, if there's like some actual texture in it. But I'm really surprised because, one, I'm drinking, this is alcoholic cider, right? It's fermented, at least a little bit.
Yeah, right.
So I love the idea that we can have a healthy, make our cider healthy and add a little probiotic. It's like, I didn't have a salad today, but put some spirulina in my drink. So that's okay. But I am really surprised because, again, like you look at it and I'm not sure what you would expect, but I think kale is kind of like that dark leafy green kind of plant material, when you see it ground up.
Yeah.
Do you see people, when you're at the farmer's market, and we wanted to do this specifically because this is like you're at the farmer's market.
Yeah.
And you are by the way, you'll be at the Burlington Farmer's Market.
Yep, all summer.
So people can come by, say hi. If you mention that you watch the Heady Vermont live stream, Chris will give you
50% off.
Cool. I was gonna say a fist pound and a handshake.
Yeah, we'll give you extra.
How about this?
Samples.
50% off orders over $1,000.
Eli will subsidize.
Yeah. But you have when people come up to you at the farmer's market, this is kind of what you've got displayed, right?
Yeah.
You've got and we have actual edible spirulina here as well, right? So it's not just for adding to drinks. People can get these, and this is a spirulina ball. Right?
Yeah, so these are made by Bava over at Sweet Alchemy in Essex, and you can see how wonderfully dark green these are.
Oh, yeah.
So these are raw vegan balls. They're super popular. We just started kind of making them recently, and then they were just when we didn't have them at farmers markets, people were super like, where the heck are they? And these particular ones, the recipes kind of change up, but these have sunflower seeds, hemp seed, pumpkin seed, maple syrup, dates, cacao, a little bit of coconut, and a ton of spirulina, as you can see, that makes it very dark green.
I gotta say, I am again surprised at kind of how taste neutral spirulina is, because again, like you see this dark green, you're like, what is this potion that I'm drinking? And then you see this and you expect it to taste like some sort of like spinach fritter or something.
Yeah. Usually when we can get the kids to taste it at the farmer's market, like the parents are like, oh my God, like they like this green thing because really, it's a great way. And usually when people are like, afraid of the, the dark green color, usually that's a sign that they should be, eating more greens.
Yeah. I love that. The more afraid of this you are,
yes, right.
the more you should probably need it in your life.
Yeah.
I do say though, like in this I can taste, and you said it's raw, it's paleo, It's vegan.
Yes.
Non-GMO.
Yep.
Gluten-free.
Gluten-free.
It's not been dried.
Everyone
it's
can
not
eat it.
been over-processed. Yep. Everybody can eat it no matter what your diet is. Yep. Like you said, the more reverse to it you are, the more you probably need it.
Yeah.
Again, like, I mean, I'm eating this and I'm tasting, there's a little bit of coconut flake on the top here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Taste that. I can definitely taste the texture of the sunflower seed. I can taste a little bit of that nuttiness of the hemp seed. Mm-hmm. I eat a lot of hemp seed, believe it or not, in this line of work. And you can really taste the dates. Like, this tastes like a sweet kind of like macaroon. Yeah. It doesn't taste like...
Exactly.
It doesn't taste like medicine. Right. It doesn't taste like...
Exactly.
It's way too healthy.
And that's
for
exactly
how
what
good
we're
it
going
tastes.
for. Yes.
Right.
Yep. And they're super popular, and you can buy them on our website, and you can buy them at the Burlington Farmers Market. Dobra Tea has them. Sweet Alchemy has them. And you can make them at home. There's recipes on our website for everything that you see here tonight, and a lot more you can find on our website.
Well, and so you said, like, you know, I'm trying to walk people through. You're at the farmers market. You know, they walk up here, they see your display, they see this, they catch your eye, they come up. What are kind of the challenges, you know, when you talk about spirulina? The first question, which again, I see a lot of parallels to CBD and hemp, is education, right?
Yeah. Yep.
You know, so you've got to do. We just spent whatever 30 minutes describing show and tell. We got pictures, all that.
Yeah.
Somebody comes up to you like this is the farmers market. Kind of what's like the 1 minute, you know, boom boom elevator pitch. Here's what spirulina is.
Yeah. So the first question we ask is, do you know what spirulina is? You know, have you heard of spirulina?
Like, oh yeah, of course I've heard of spirulina. I'm a cool person.
Yeah.
I'm here at the farmers market.
That completely changes it, because
Right.
a lot of people haven't. You know.
Yeah.
So definitely one of the challenges is talking about what spirulina is, and then having to start. You know, like I gave you, you know, some of the pitch. I can talk for a lot longer about the history of spirulina and how, you know, humans started cultivating it, and how, you know, it became accepted in, you know, or more accepted into into cuisine. But another really, you know, common thing is, you know, when people, if they don't know what spirulina is, they're like, you know, and you say, you know, of course you start off by saying it's a blue-green algae, right? Cyanobacteria is also almost even, you know, so you say it's a blue-green algae and they're like, oh, the stuff that's in the lake, that means our dogs can't swim.
Oh, right. Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So, like, you know, it's a challenge, right?
Algae.
Like, I'm like, you know, like my, you know, spirulina.
Algae's really looking for a big PR boost
Exactly,
this day.
you're right,
Like,
exactly. Spirulina
yeah.
is in the same family as the stuff that, you know, is, but like, you know, it's a super large family. There's tens of thousands of different members of that family,
right.
of the cyanobacteria, of the blue-green algae family. And, you know, one of my favorite things to say is that nightshades are tomatoes, but also nightshades can kill you, and that's a much smaller family, you know? So there's nightshades that can kill you. There's also nightshades that are tomatoes and eggplants, you know? And you're talking about a much smaller family. So, you know, there's...
Same thing with spirulina. I mean, the cyanobacteria,
yeah.
the blue-green algae family, it's
massive.
That's so massive.
And it's so ancient. You know, it's like literally, we think that there's tens of thousands, but it's so huge.
It's literally primordial.
Yeah, right,
and
exactly.
spirulina is one very specific part.
It is.
You know, and again, the stuff that you're working with,
the stuff that we grow is from Africa. Is technically has been cultivated from Africa. So this is from the Lake Chad region in Africa.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Africanized.
Yes. It's Arthrospira platensis is the actual name of what you're eating here. Yeah.
So people come up and you explain to them spirulina, it's a blue-green algae, you know, it grows international development, superfood. So then you hit them with the nutrition facts.
Yes.
So you mentioned earlier more vitamin A, more protein.
So one of the biggest things is that it's 65% protein. So like, you know, we're very popular in vegetarian and vegan circles because it's such a high percentage of protein.
Right.
So by weight, it is the most of any food. So it's 65% protein. Red meat, for example, one of the closest, by weight is like 35%. So it's literally almost double than you know, a steak. You know, if you
you could eat an 8-ounce steak or 16 ounces.
And that's also why when it brings back to efficiency. You know, spirulina, you can grow the most amount of protein per acre of any food, and also with vitamin A and iron, it has immense amounts of iron and vitamin A.
Well, and we talk about growing, right? Yeah. And for a lot of people, growing comes down to inputs and outputs, right? So when you talk about growing spirulina and that you can get this much protein and this much nutrition with less inputs.
Yes.
Right? I mean,
Right.
because you need to,
Even the amount
you are
of water,
growing this in Vermont, right?
Even the amount of water we use for this is
Yeah.
so much less than, you think Spirulina would use a lot of water because it grows in water,
Right.
but it actually uses less water, far less water than soybeans, way less than beef or a lot of different sources of protein. So really, in terms of agricultural space, and that's another thing, we grow in the farm that we're moving to in Williston. We actually we're actually reserving some of the more arable land for a hemp farmer who's going to be at our new spot in Williston. We're moving from Johnson to Williston, a bit more sun and closer to our commercial kitchen, which is also in Williston. Right. And we're reserving the arable land for a hemp farmer. And then we're actually able to grow on a part of land that, it's a bit more compact. It's not really the best soil for crops, for hemp.
Right.
So we're actually able to, really have a great symbiotic relationship on a farm. You could grow Spirulina in a parking lot if you wanted to, in greenhouses, because you don't need to,
Yeah, in our very parking lot.
Yeah, right.
Well, I think that's a really important part too, because that's really one of the most interesting things is all the efficiency.
Yeah.
That's inherent. And you mentioned the hemp and that, your location, that you're sharing land with hemp farmer, and that, you guys in a greenhouse, do you need power? Do you need to do light depth? Do you need to do, I assume you got to do some heat, right? We're still in Vermont.
Well, so we use insulation. We try not to use, in the future we might try to use, a bit more solar or geothermal. But we use a lot of insulation. And then that's kind of why we have the fresh raw living during the the spring, summer, fall months, and then we have the fresh frozen during the winter months, is because we are trying to not use fossil fuel. We're trying not to use that many inputs. So we're trying to we're trying to be sustainable in that way, but also.
I mean, I think the sustainability part of it.
Yeah.
Along with I love that you said I love that you mentioned the hemp farm part too.
Yeah.
Because to me, that's one of the thematic similarities here, right? Is that it's taking an ancient plant, right? An ancient sort of common sense, and yes, use the plants and use the bacteria, that are available and kind of around you, and get the most of it. And now you guys are in a position where you've taken this and you've gone to India, you've traveled the world, you guys have done years of education and development, product development, research, gone every place that you can. And you're now in this position where you've got this very cool company, Northern Spirulina, positioned here in Vermont, employing people in Vermont, using land in Vermont, setting up markets in Vermont. And it's essentially taking an ancient kind of common sense and just reminding everybody, hey, by the way, this stuff is here.
Yeah.
We know how to do it.
Yep.
It's way better for you than a lot of other things, including red meat probably, and it's a lot more sustainable.
Yep.
And it's so simple that we just need people to kind of carry the torch and lead that kind of reawakening.
For sure.
And that's what I think is so cool about this and doing this in Vermont, and what you guys are doing is because you're kind of carrying that torch and you're saying here's something that is maybe inherent, and 20 years ago, it was the people in the Onion River Co-op. There was 50 people or 100 or 1,000 people in Burlington who were aware of it. And now it's you're touching all of these different people.
For sure.
How do you guys kind of, as a Vermont product, kind of what's the growth trajectory like, and kind of what do you guys do to get the word out there?
Yeah.
Because like we said, the opportunities are huge.
Yeah.
The challenges are just education, familiarity. One of the reasons why I'm pumped we're doing this today.
Yeah.
So kind of how do you guys get it out? How do you guys get the word out there? And then we'll talk about where people can find you too.
Yeah. So a lot of events is a huge thing. So we're doing lots of markets. We're definitely trying to develop. What's awesome is Green Mountain Messenger. Honestly, I'd love to do a shout out to them because they give a great. They allow us to distribute to a lot of small places in Vermont, which is really great. So really, what we're doing is, we're trying to grow Spirulina for people in Vermont this summer. You talked about inputs earlier, and really you can grow Spirulina in a pool in your backyard, and you don't need almost anything. You can stir it by yourself by hand, and just, keep the water out. You can build a little makeshift thing. You can, put some plastic over it, or, some glass or something, and stir it yourself. So really what we're trying to do is we're trying to have as many, we're trying to go to markets. We're trying to, when we go to even smaller, little mom and pop shops, we're going to go there and table there, and we're going to talk to people, because a lot of what we're trying to do is literally a massive education campaign.
Right.
So it's a lot of talking to people about Spirulina. This summer, come visit me at the Burlington Farmers Market. I'm going to have, seeds and some instructions for people. I'd love to get people to, start growing themselves. So really,
anybody can grow. There's no permit. There's no.
I mean,
there's no legal kind of.
I mean, for growing, if you're going to grow and sell to people, you have to, have.
That's
plan.
A whole
exactly.
other.
That's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
But for growing for yourself, no, it's actually quite easy. I mean, you can find, places, online that'll sell you little kits, and it's really, it's fun. It's a way to, really like create this. You really feel connected to the energy and the food when you're eating it. So
well, and that's such a cool thing, because I think so many people, especially with the changing role of cannabis, and how the kind of grow your own mentality is becoming sort of more cool.
Yeah.
Right. And people are realizing like that kind of just satisfaction and like that very tactile thing. And Spirulina is something. Again, I hate to just come back to kombucha all the time, but it's something that you can do where you're watching it, you're giving it inputs. You don't necessarily need to be out there weeding it every single day.
Yeah, right.
Right? Like you need to be diligent and check it out. And if you're doing anything commercial, of course.
Yeah.
But I did want to ask, we did get a question from somebody who had asked about the direct hemp question. So is this something that people can put CBD in? I mean, I guess so if they wanted to, right? It's
I have not heard.
Maybe let's zoom it out a little bit, maybe,
Sure.
and talk about, because we didn't mention these, and I really really love these energy shots.
Yeah.
What are the different applications, and then maybe like how would CBD or hemp or, I guess in the future marijuana.
Yeah.
Is there a way
I see
that
lots
oil,
of crossover.
how does oil get involved with algae, I guess?
Yeah, I see lots of crossover. I mean, I don't know too much about oil, but I mean, like these balls right here have loads of hemp seed in them. We're looking at because CBD's a wonderful thing. I'm a big fan of it myself, and there's ways that we could incorporate Spirulina in honey and CBD. So I've never seen any sort of scientific piece, any sort of article about any negative. Honestly, I've never seen very many aspects that, Spirulina has a negative impact when paired with X. The one thing I will mention, if you are a breastfeeding mother, you should talk to your doctor.
Yep.
And most of the fact that has, is because Spirulina is very detoxing. So, as breastfeeding, you're detoxing, and you want to be careful of that. But really, there's not
father to be clear.
Yes,
clearly
right.
little bleed over. Yeah.
And also, another thing, is it also raises your white blood cell counts. People have autoimmune diseases. But really, unless you have some sort of some sort of pre-existing condition that you should talk to your doctor about. It's really great to pair with all sorts of things. We have a new product coming out. I guess I'll give a little sneak peek, but
that's why we're here, man.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely. Please.
We are going to do a hemp milk shot. Is our next shot.
All right, very
so
good.
It's going to be some hemp milk and some Spirulina. So we're kind of going. You've got like the juice ginger, and then we're going to have the sort of like the hemp milk. Sort of two different ends. So hopefully.
Right. Whether you want the acidic or the like.
Exactly.
More,
so sort of the
right.
Yeah, right.
Sometimes you want milk. Sometimes you want orange juice.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And this itself right here. I mean, this is a ginger. I think it's just Spirulina,
Vermont apple cider,
ginger,
and a little bit of lemon juice. Yep.
A little bit of lemon juice.
Yeah.
And these actually, we love these. These are the frozen energy shots.
Yeah.
Big fan of those. So I guess, where can people find Northern Spirulina? Where are they going to meet you in person?
Yeah.
And how do they get their hands on some? Because if people are like, hey, I'm doing a juice bar, you know, or I love to juice and I'm using CBD or I'm using whatever, like how do they find you? How do they find Northern Spirulina?
Yeah, so one of, you know, the best, you know, places to talk to us directly is going to be through our CSA program, which you can talk to us at the Burlington Farmers Market. You can also go to our website, and you can buy from us directly at those places. Also Healthy Living and Pete's Greens and Rail Yard Apothecary. Actually, Rail Yard Apothecary is one of the only places where you can actually buy our sort of like, you know, large cubes, you know, our bulk, our bulk full pounds of cubes you can buy in bulk from Rail Yard Apothecary. Mahurans, you can buy it from Pete's Greens. You can buy it from, we're going to be at we're at Commodities in Winooski.
Yeah, Winooski, my town. All right.
Winooski, yep.
Shout out to Waking Windows.
Yep.
You guys are all there this weekend.
Yep.
Pop over to Commodities.
Yep. And you know, Healthy Living is also, you know, a great spot to get it. So you know, different spots all over Vermont. We're trying to really develop the CSA program. It really sort of, you know, helps us out. A lot of people, once they start, you know, using the Spirulina, you know, smoothies and juices, and they start getting they start using it in more of a, you know, a daily or you know, more of a regular usage.
Yeah.
Buying directly from us through our CSA program is really, really helpful for us because we can gauge. It's, you know, Spirulina grows differently than kale and carrots. You know, like it grows, if there's a hot, sunny 90-degree day, we have a huge, you know, amount, you know, and then if it's a cloudy day, it's literally, it's like, you know, it's like that. It's
really?
Not like,
so it's not like we're waiting. It's directly. It's not like
oh
a
my
6
God.
month. It's
you know,
like a 6 day.
We're paying very close attention to the weather day by day. You know, so it's not this thing that you grow for multiple months and then you're sort of, you know, and you're left with a crop. It's sort of, so, you know, the CSA program is really a great way to, you know, both support the farm and get it really cheaper than any other way you would get it. And also helps us, you know, when we have a more constant number of how much, you know, because of this thing, you know, that, you know, in Vermont we have, you know, wildly, you know, changing temperatures, which is a challenge.
Yeah, no shit, man.
Exactly.
I mean, we're sitting here.
Yeah, it's a challenge for all sorts of crops.
Right.
And for Spirulina, it's no different, you know, so, you know, the CSA program I would really recommend. And then, you know, of course, you know, I'm at the Burlington, in my baby boy is due on May 14th. So I will not be at the first few Burlington farmers markets, but I will be at, you know, most of the rest of them throughout the year.
Beautiful.
You can visit Greg and Aaron at the beginning ones.
Well, exactly. And that's why, again, you know, what's something that's been so beautiful about this, I mean, like, disclosure, we all share a studio space here together,
right.
too. So I mean, that's part of how we met and why this has been such a fun adventure. You know, with Jam Creative, with Heady Vermont, Northern Spirulina, and just kind of meeting other cool people who are doing like exciting, innovative, Vermont ag focused, kind of health conscious. Like, you know, you're a young guy. All the people who you work with you are young people. You guys are renting land, using land in Vermont.
Yep.
Overall, like I said, it's just such a cool kind of combination that I really wanted to tonight, knowing that we weren't going to talk about hemp or we weren't going to talk about medical patients or we weren't going to talk about all of that.
We made connections.
We totally made connections, and there are connections to be made, but at the heart of it, like that's the connection, right? Sustainability, young people doing cool shit in Vermont, you know, and
health,
being creative, health and wellness. How many different ways we can use the color green in all of our different marketing ventures. You know, and like I said, just kind of sharing this with other people, and that's kind of what this live stream is about. So, you gave a great plug. I want to tell people to check out Northern Spirulina. It's just northernspirulina.com.
That's it. Yep.
You can reach these guys, info@northernspirulina.com. You can see this beautiful logo. You can catch them here if you're lucky enough to find yourself down here at the Jam Creative Heady Vermont studios for any variety of reasons. You might catch Chris in person. But in general, I want to encourage you guys, especially check out the CSA program. That's how you get enough supply to try it yourself and learn about it. That's how you get enough to share with your friends. And that's how you help small producers grow. That's why we do small CSAs, and that's why it's such a good thing for Vermont. So I encourage you guys, check out Northern Spirulina. Big thank you to Chris for joining us, as always. Big thank you to Jam Creative and to the Jam Kitchen. We now have a kitchen set.
Yes, right.
Which it's going to be funny because, like, in the coming months, like, There's going to be a dab, there will be a dab bar on here at some point. Like, I don't know all the ridiculous stuff that we're going to do with this set.
Lots of cool ideas.
But I know that it wouldn't be possible without GM Creative, without our man Sean behind the decks here. You guys can't see him, but he's the one who makes this all look amazing. He's been running around busting his ass with about 1,000 different cameras and lights here. So
he has a big smile on his face right now.
You can hit him up. Yeah, well, and he's done with college in May. Not for good, but just for the year. So he's got a lot of time this summer. And if you guys want this kind of caliber production, hit him up because like everybody else, we need to keep these young people employed, happy, engaged in Vermont.
Yeah.
Exactly. So big thank you to everybody for tuning in. You can check out more information. Drop your questions online if you have them. We'll get back there and respond to every single one of them. You can find Chris. You can find Northern Spirulina. You can find Sean Simonetti behind the decks. And you can always find Heady Vermont at headyvermont.com. Until then, we'll see you guys next week.